Hi guys, hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm hoping that you're excited about getting back to school because I am, and this is specifically for my students. And it's amazing. My son is excited about going back to school because hey, I teach him. My daughter is also excited about going back to school. There's a lot of uncertainty, but rest assured everything is gonna be just fine. And here's a lesson to kickstart your new academic year. We're looking at a standard that focuses on identifying various art materials. Also, use the language of visual arts to communicate effectively. Now, art tells a story, okay? Art is a means of communication and it's very effective. There are multiple ways of communicating. Visual art is a good way to express feelings, emotions, etc. Alright, so I'm going to start by focusing on the basics, which is simply the elements of design. Alright, you could even say the elements of visual art. So there are different types of elements of visual arts, but we're going to specifically start with the basic, which is a line. Okay, we're going to focus on a line. Now, there are different types of lines. You have lines with different characteristics. You have straight line, you have wavy lines, you have broken lines, and hey, this is a 3D line that I'm manipulating right here. And at the end of the day, we're looking at lines. Or I could just write out the word elements of design. We're also going to talk about the types of materials that are used to draw lines. Anything that you can use to make a mark. Connecting two dots. So you have a dot, which is A, and a dot, which is B, and you have a connection right there. Hence, you create a line from point A. And you also have imaginary lines. So we're looking at elements of design. Now we're focusing on specifically, let's unpack what this means, elements of designs. Alright, so we're talking about elements of designs and we're going to look at one element, specifically line within a space. The space is also an element of design, but the emphasis is going to be placed on lines. So what are elements? Elements are basically the small parts that makes up the whole design. Those little itty bitty part that makes up the whole design. Alright, so it is similar to culinary arts like cake baking. The ingredients. So elements, ingredients. Even though we're talking about cake, we're just making a reference so you do clearly understand what it means. The ingredients could be the salt, the sugar, the flour, the butter. You know, in order for you to make a good cake, you have to ensure that you put the right amount of cake mixture, the right amount of ingredients. So it's the same way with the design. You have to be able to put the right amount of it's about how you compose, how you distribute those elements within a space. So here we're working with the different characteristics of lines, which is easy. And then we're going to see how we can occupy a space using those lines. Also, we're going to look at those elements of the design in nature, their origin and how important they are. And my son is also going to share a very, very important piece of information with you guys. Alright, so first, let's look at the different characteristics of lines. So pretty much you can have the regular, which we're familiar with, a straight line and a how we describe these characteristics. Alright, so we have a straight line right there, we have a thick line, we describe this one, a thick line right there, and we could have a very thin line right there, which is the opposite of the thick line. So there are many ways in which you can present this element. So you have a thick line, a thin line, straight line, you have wavy line, good. Then we have a dotted line, good. So you could write in or label all of those: thin line, wavy line, dotted line. Then you have a broken line. You could also have, how about a spiral line? The spiral line, alright? So wavy line, you could be looking at a mountain range or water, alright? Pretty much hope we have it all. Okay, how about a zigzag line? Spikes. Alright, so the spiral line could also be this way, like ripples, you know. So you can make the association with these. Alright, good. And in essence, we could also just put a control line around this, a border, and this could be a complete design. So these would be the elements of design, specifically lines within a controlled space. So we're looking at the different characteristics of lines. Alright, so we're gonna look at a design, a very basic design, like this. Alright, so there's an important principle that we're gonna follow right here. In another lesson, we're gonna talk about principles of design. We're talking about pattern, all right? How do we distribute these lines within the space? All right, so two main elements that comes out is space. We don't really talk much about space in this design because the emphasis is on lines, okay? So the emphasis is on types of lines or different characteristics of lines. It's very simple. All right, so here we have a rectangular space, sorry. And we're going to look at the different types of lines, how we can see evidence of these in nature, and how we can be inspired by nature, alright, and how nature can help us. Alright, so here we have a watermelon, alright, and look at the types of lines that we have here on the watermelon. Isn't that interesting? Look at that. Alright, so I'm gonna ask my son, he's gonna be in 4th grade, to read something that is very essential to this lesson.
Nature can help us come up with new ideas for inventions. Gecko feet have inspired the invention of a new NASA robot.
Wow, isn't that awesome, guys? Yes. So look at such an amazing invention or design that is so critical to our modern development and science. And I'm passionate, I'm a fan of science too, arts and science and education. Now, look at that gecko, how these designers, these scientists could gain inspiration from observing nature and come up with a design such as that. So that's what I was saying. When you look at the watermelon, it's very intricate. There's so much that you can get from this, the different types of lines and patterns. If you notice, the repetition is pattern that we're talking about. And it's very simple. You can start with simple. When we look at a banana, for example, when we zoom in and we look at all these dots, we could make an association with the dotted lines. We can get so much dotted lines out of this. Good. And third and final, we look at a cantaloupe. This is so intricate. Oh my God. When you look at the different lines and patterns, this is so complex. It's very complex. You can even get a little bit confused with these types of lines. It looks like a maze, looks like a puzzle. Alright, good. So let's make a simple design. Let's start with the basics. So usually I tell my kiddos to simply just fold their paper into 2 equal halves. It's very simple. Here we go. And we're going to fold it again into 2 again. So it's going to end up with 4 equal parts, 4 equal quarter. So we have 4 our main space is subdivided into 4 different spaces. And then we're going to occupy this space or these spaces using basic lines. So what I do, I make sure, remember where the middle of my paper is. I always tell my kiddos to look at me, make sure, hold on to the middle, and there you go. And then we're going to start. So let me erase all of this, or maybe not, you can look at it, but zoom in on this. So we're going to start with, we choose one of these lines that we're going to work with. We're going to use wavy lines. I choose to use wavy lines. Alright, you could use spiral lines, but I choose wavy lines. Maybe the next time I turn over the paper, I'm going to use a different type of line. So let me see how quickly I can replicate these lines. And as I said before, pattern is similar to rhythm. It's about consistency, repetition. So the same type of line is repeated in a sequential way. No intervals, no haphazards, just being consistent. We just want to go as basic as we can, as we possibly can, especially for our younger students. So you can decide if you want to use thick lines or thin lines. Do you want to put these lines closer together or you want to space them apart? And you can decide if you want to color code your lines also. Now you can think about where in nature have you seen anything similar to this? This is basic. It is highly possible that you can find this similar pattern in nature or make an association. So the designer can deliberately have a meaning for his or her design, while the viewers may see something similar to this design, or it may trigger a memory of something specific that they would have seen before, like on a zebra, or if you throw a pebble in a water pond or lake, a still water, it may have that kind of effect. And that's what we call a ripple effect, similar to a domino effect. Good. Or it could be similar to that of a shock wave. So it may give you that kind of visual movement. And these are organic lines, to be specific. So when we're talking about using art to communicate, the artist may deliberately want to communicate something, while the viewer may also associate what he or she views with something familiar. So you have to be patient, have to be deliberate, because that's what design is about. You deliberately convey a message or an expression. So you can start seeing movement or visual movement, or an illusion of flowing lines. So it's best to start simple before you start making it more complex. Because when we start talking about principle and how principle affects composition, we're going to get more understanding of the various ways in which we can make our designs more interesting. For want of a better word, you don't want to say complicated. Alright, so we're going to know that this is the middle. I'm going to turn it over and still know this is the middle. Just going to try to see if we can create a little bit of deviation here, variety here. There we go. Let me see if I can put a little bit more speed into it. I want you to get this. You have to be diligent, you have to be deliberate, you have to be patient. I'm going to show you where the inspiration comes from, or where in nature you can make an association. Literally, I'm going to show you something from nature after I'm through with this, where I could make this association, or where this design could have been inspired.